Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to kick off the first day of his marathon schedule in America. The first day will begin with a series of back-to-back high-level meetings with the top business honchos in the country. These meetings with the top 5 chiefs of global companies is a highly significant one, as the Prime Minister seeks to push India as a key player in global supply chains as well as in the Indo-Pacific region. The discussions are likely to be centered around reviving economic growth in the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic, shattering the global economies. India has also recently undertaken a host of measures to attract investments, including burying the ghost of retrospective taxation and opening many sectors for foreign direct investment. 2 of the CEOs whom the Prime Minister is scheduled to meet are Indian Americans. The first one is Shantanu Narayan, the CEO of Adobe. This one reflects the priority in the field of IT and digital space for India. And the second one is Vivek Lal from General Atomics. Now, this meeting is a significant one as it comes at the backdrop of India acquiring 30 Predator drones from America. The other 3 heads of companies are Cristiano Aramon, the president and CEO of Qualcomm. It creates semiconductor software and services related to wireless technology. The 4th meeting is with Mark Widmer, the CEO and director of First Solar, an American manufacturer of solar panels. And lastly, Prime Minister Modi will meet with Stephen A. Schwarzman, the CEO and chairman of Blackstone, an American alternative investment management company based in New York City. Now, for more on this, we have our correspondents and my colleague Siddhant Sibal live from Washington, D.C. and Susan Teherani is joining us live from New York from the United Nations headquarters in the city. Susan and Siddhant, welcome to WION. You both have, of course, been getting us all the live updates from the UNGA underway currently. Siddhant, I'd like to take my first question to you. Now, we've all been seeing some visuals of the warm welcome that the Indian diaspora has extended to the Indian Prime Minister. Tell us about the significance of the Indian Prime Minister's visit and, of course, his action-packed agenda ahead.
Well, yes, good morning to you, Priyanka, from Washington. It's just past 8:30 a.m. here, and it's a long day for the Indian Prime Minister. First day here in Washington, and a significant visit, visit in terms of the bilateral meetings, his meetings with business leaders, his participation in the UNGA and the Quad. But if I can tell you this, right now the weather in Washington, it has been raining since morning here. If I can ask my camera person to show you the visual, and I'm stepping out from the frame. So it has been raining a lot here in the national capital of Washington since morning, and it looks like it's not going to stop very early. But talking about the big geopolitical development, this of course is a significant development in terms of the outcomes. It is expected that from the Quad meeting, the first in-person Quad meeting, there will be a lot of outcomes in terms of climate change. We have already seen the 12th March virtual meeting in which the key outcome was on the COVID vaccine initiative, under which American vaccines will be manufactured in India and logistically and financially supported by the Japanese and the Australian. Firstly, of course, we know that, as you have pointed out, the business leaders will be the top focus. In fact, shortly in an hour's time, I do expect the business leaders to start arriving where I am standing. I'm standing just at the entrance to Prime Minister's hotel. Then, of course, there are 3 bilaterals, Australia and Japan. Specifically talking about Australia, we know the relationship is something which is seen in a very positive manner. But of course, there is the shadow of the AUKUS security pact between the US, UK and Australia. Australia getting the nuclear submarines. And interestingly, the Australians had kept the Indian side in loop. The Australian Prime Minister spoke to the Indian Prime Minister just hours before the AUKUS pact was to be announced. That shows that the Australians were keen to make sure that their partners know about this development. Nobody likes surprises in diplomacy. Talking about Japan now, Japan of course is a crucial partner in terms of infrastructure development in India. Connectivity, the bullet train is being developed by the Japanese. So during this meeting, both leaders will be reviewing the various development, various projects. We know that Suga of course has his own domestic politics, and he will no longer be the Prime Minister very soon. But as they say in democracies, prime ministers come and go. It is the relationship that needs to be stable, and that essentially is the core of this relationship. We have seen in the past as well, whether it was Shinzo Abe or other leaders. With Shinzo Abe, the Indian Prime Minister shared a warm camaraderie, and the three countries, India, Australia and Japan, have been working together in various initiatives. Supply chain initiative is one of the initiative under which three countries are making sure that there are alternative supply chains which were seen disrupted amidst the COVID pandemic.
Right, Siddhant, thank you so much for all those updates. We'll come back to you for more updates once, of course, the Indian Prime Minister sits down with the business honchos. Coming to you, Susan, now the big focus right now is, of course, the upcoming meeting, the sit-down between the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and some of the biggest global CEOs, specifically of American companies. We know there's a global chip shortage, and one of the names that we know that the Prime Minister is meeting with is Cristiano Aramon, who happens to be the CEO of Qualcomm. So tell us a little bit more about what are the expectations, what's on the discussion table at this big meeting.
Good morning to you from New York, and I am outside of the United Nations Security Council just to give you an update of what's happening here at the UNGA. There is a high-level meeting on climate and security chaired by the Prime Minister of Ireland, and Antonio Guterres, UN Secretary General, is taking part as we speak here. So this is the main event taking part here. Yes, as you mentioned, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi really being strategic in his business meetings with different CEOs, and a lot of significance in terms of IT and defense capabilities as well. But I think another really noteworthy one is the one that he's meeting with the CEO of General Atomic, which is acquiring drones, and that's something that has made headlines here in the United States. And that's because there's been so much talk of this defense capability and over the horizon capabilities moving forward, not only in terms of countering future terrorism activities, but also in terms of intelligence, surveillance, and also reconnaissance as well, not just targeting. So that's something that not only perhaps the Indian side is really keen to understand and look forward to see what happens with that, but I think Americans are also looking at that very keenly and closely in terms of cooperation as well. But on the other fronts, yes, we're also looking at that very closely to see what happens.
Right. Thank you for that, Susan. Now, you've been following all the developments at the UNGA very closely. You're at the headquarters right now. Tell us a little bit about Boris Johnson's address, which, of course, has made headlines, where he has put climate change and the climate crisis right on the center stage. And you mentioned that climate change is also being discussed as we speak. The Indian Prime Minister also has the climate crisis high on his agenda.
Absolutely, and Boris Johnson really did make headlines last night because he was sort of a late speaker here in terms of the time zone in New York, and he tried to, really make his speech very interesting. But at the heart of it really was the climate crisis, and it really shows that how he's taking the issue and what the theme of the United Nations has been this year on climate seriously, and working in partnership with his allies here, and really honing on that, and then taking that and applying it to different aspects of the challenges that the global community is facing. And he also alluded to the fact that addressing climate really goes hand in hand with not only the conflicts that we're seeing around the world, but also with food insecurity, with other challenges as well, the pandemic, and also what's happening to the livestock, and also and other issues. So yes, it was high on the agenda. He has made climate a cornerstone, and then obviously we're going to see that high-level meeting in Glasgow later on in the year. This was really a prelude of what we're expected to see later in the year in November in Glasgow, and he used that platform to really demonstrate that last night.
All right, Susan, thank you so much for all those updates, and thank you for joining us from the UN headquarters in New York. We'll come back to you for more updates.